Look, fellas, there's a moment that hits a lot of men in their 40s and 50s, and it's quiet, but it's brutal. You're doing what you've always done. You're being respectful. You're trying harder. You're giving more space. And somehow, things with women feel more confusing, more distant, more tense than they used to. And here's the uncomfortable part most guys never say out loud. The very things you think are helping, they're often doing the opposite. I see men every week who are shocked when they finally understand this. They realize it's not that women changed, it's that no one ever explained how women's psychology and health actually work, especially as you get older. I'm Dr. Rosalia Viterbo, and I specialize in men's health, especially helping men over 40 get their energy, confidence, hormones, and sexual performance back on track naturally. I work with guys who are successful on paper but feel off behind the scenes. Low drive, low patience, low motivation, and a lot of unanswered questions about their bodies and their relationships. And here's the thing most men don't expect. A huge part of male health after 40 is directly influenced by how you relate to women, emotionally, psychologically, and physiologically. Stress from relationships affect testosterone. Confusion affects confidence, and intimacy issues don't start in the bedroom. They start in misunderstanding. I'm not here to bash men or women. I'm here to translate what's really going on, doctor to patient, so you can stop guessing and start understanding what actually works. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some genuinely surprising facts about women, things most men were never taught, never shown, and honestly were never supposed to understand this clearly. We're going to talk about how women's psychology and health actually work, how stress and hormones shape their behavior, and why men over 40 often misread what's really happening. I'll break down several key facts that explain why communication breaks down, why intimacy changes over time, and why doing more effort often backfires. And make sure you stay with me until the end, because one of the final points is something I see even seasoned doctors miss. And once you understand it, a lot of confusion suddenly makes sense. Before we get into the specific facts, we need to slow down for a minute and talk about why this topic matters so much, especially for men over 40. Because this stuff doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits right at the intersection of hormones, aging, stress, and long-term relationships. Here's the deal. Men and women don't just think differently because of personality or upbringing. Biology plays a massive role. Hormones shape perception, emotion, memory, and behavior. And as both men and women age, those hormonal systems shift. Sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively. The problem is, nobody really explains what those shifts look like in real life. Most men are taught a very basic framework growing up. Women are emotional, men are logical. That's an oversimplification to the point of being useless. What's actually happening is that women's brains and bodies are designed to constantly scan for safety, connection, and stability, especially under stress. And as women age, particularly through perimenopause and menopause, that internal system becomes more sensitive, not less. Now here's where men over 40 get blindsided. At the same time, women are experiencing hormonal fluctuations. Men are dealing with declining testosterone, higher cortisol, worse sleep, and more responsibility. Work stress, financial pressure, health concerns. It all stacks up. Your nervous system is already running hot, so when communication changes or intimacy shifts, it feels personal, like rejection, like failure. Most men respond by either pulling back emotionally or trying harder in the wrong way. More logic, more fixing, more advice, and unintentionally, that creates more distance, not because you're doing something wrong as a man, but because you're using the wrong operating system for what's actually happening. Think of it like this. You're trying to fix a software issue with hardware tools. You're tightening bolts when the problem is in the code, and no one ever handed you the manual. Another thing men usually get wrong is assuming these changes happen suddenly. They don't. They creep in quietly over years. Communication feels off. Intimacy becomes inconsistent. Little disagreements feel heavier than they used to. And because there's no clear moment where everything breaks, men tend to blame themselves, or worse, assume this is just how life is after 40. It's not. But understanding what's really going on requires better information, not more effort. That's why this conversation matters. Because when you understand the psychology and health realities behind women's behavior and how your own biology is changing at the same time, you stop taking everything personally. You get calmer, more grounded, more confident, and ironically, that's when relationships start improving again. First, women experience stress very differently than men, and it changes with age. Here's the first thing you've got to understand. When women are stressed, it doesn't just stay in their head. It moves through their entire body. Stress directly affects their hormones, their sleep, their mood, their desire for intimacy, and even how safe or connected they feel in a relationship. For women, cortisol, the stress hormone, has a much tighter relationship with estrogen and progesterone than most men realize. As women get into their 40s and 50s, those hormones fluctuate more, which means stress hits harder and lingers longer. Most men think, if I remove the problem, the stress should go away. That's how men are wired. Fix the issue, move on. But for women, stress is often about emotional safety and nervous system regulation, not just problem solving. Real-life example. You come home tired, she's irritated or distant, and you immediately start offering solutions. In your mind, you're helping. In her body, it can feel dismissive or overwhelming. What actually works is reducing emotional pressure, not increasing logic, slowing down, listening without fixing. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you effective. Second, emotional connection directly influences physical intimacy more than men realize. This one trips up a lot of men, especially over 40. Men often separate emotional connection and physical desire. Women usually can't. For women, intimacy starts long before the bedroom. As women age, spontaneous desire becomes less common, especially under stress. Desire becomes more responsive. It builds from feeling emotionally safe, understood, and relaxed. Most men think intimacy drops because attraction is gone or something is wrong. In reality, it's often because the nervous system is overloaded. Think of desire like a dimmer switch, not an on-off button. Stress, resentment, exhaustion, all of that turns the lights down. What works isn't pushing harder or taking it personally. What works is creating an environment where her system can calm down. When that happens, desire often follows naturally. Third, women are highly sensitive to emotional consistency, and inconsistency erodes trust fast. Here's a big one. Women tend to pick up on emotional patterns very quickly. Tone changes, body language, energy shifts, especially over time. When men are stressed, distracted, or emotionally shut down, they often think they're hiding it. They're not. As men age, testosterone drops, stress tolerance decreases, and patience shortens. That can lead to emotional withdrawal without realizing it. Most men think trust is about loyalty and honesty, and it is, but emotional consistency is just as important. If you're warm one day and distant the next, present one week and checked out the next, that creates insecurity, not because she's dramatic, but because her brain is wired to track relational safety. What works is predictability. Showing up emotionally in small, steady ways, not grand gestures. Consistency. Fourth, women communicate indirectly under stress, and men misinterpret this as manipulation. This one causes endless confusion. When women are stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally flooded, communication often becomes indirect. Hints, tone, short responses, silence. Men tend to interpret this as passive-aggressive or manipulative. In most cases, it's not. What's happening is that the emotional system is overloaded and verbal clarity drops. Think of it like trying to talk clearly when you're exhausted. It's harder. Most men respond by demanding clarity right now. Just tell me what you want. That often backfires. What works is patience and timing, letting emotions settle before pushing for solutions. Calm presence beats interrogation every time. Fifth, women feel emotional disconnection as physical rejection, and it cuts both ways. Here's something men rarely hear. Just like men feel rejected when intimacy drops, women often feel rejected when emotional connection fades. When men get stressed, tired, or overwhelmed, they often go quiet, withdraw, or focus on tasks. To a woman's nervous system, that can feel like abandonment, even if that's not your intention. So both sides feel rejected, both sides pull back, and nobody says it out loud. The fix isn't more talking or more effort, it's awareness. Understanding that emotional presence matters as much as physical presence. When you stay emotionally engaged, even briefly, it reassures her system, and when her system feels safe, everything else gets easier. These facts aren't about blame, they're about understanding how psychology and biology intersect, especially as both men and women age. And when you understand this, you stop fighting the wrong battles and start getting better results. A few years ago, I worked with a patient, I'll call him Mark. Mark was 52, married for over 20 years, solid career, good provider, decent health on paper. But he came to me frustrated, confused, and honestly a little defeated. His main complaints were low energy, declining sex drive, and constant tension at home. He told me, "Doc, no matter what I do, it feels like I'm failing. She's always stressed, I'm always walking on eggshells, and intimacy is hit or miss." He assumed the problem was the relationship, or worse, that he just wasn't enough anymore. When we dug deeper, a few things stood out. Mark's testosterone was on the low end of normal, his cortisol was elevated, and his sleep was poor. He was mentally exhausted all the time. On top of that, his wife was in her late 40s, dealing with hormonal changes of her own, higher anxiety, and disrupted sleep. Here's the key part. Mark had started emotionally withdrawing without realizing it. He wasn't angry, he wasn't cheating, he was just tired. He thought staying quiet was keeping the peace. In reality, his emotional absence was increasing her stress, which killed intimacy even further. What did we do? We didn't start with couples therapy or long talks. We worked on his physiology first. Sleep, stress regulation, hormone support, and daily routines to lower cortisol. Then we made one simple behavioral change: short, consistent emotional check-ins. No fixing, no defending, just presence. Within a few months, his energy improved, his confidence came back, and something unexpected happened. His relationship softened, less tension, more affection. Intimacy returned naturally. The lesson here is critical. Most men think relationship problems start in the relationship. A lot of times they start in the body. Fix the physiology, understand the psychology, and everything else gets easier. First myth: if I'm doing my job as a provider, everything else should fall into place. This belief comes from an older model of masculinity, and while providing is important, it's not the full picture anymore, especially after 40. Emotional presence matters more as stress increases on both sides. When men rely only on providing and withdraw emotionally, it creates distance, not security. The truth is, stability today includes emotional consistency, not just financial responsibility. Second myth: if she's stressed or distant, I need to fix the problem immediately. This one comes from good intentions. Men are wired to solve. But emotional stress isn't always a problem to fix. It's a state to move through. Pushing for solutions too fast can make women feel unheard or pressured, which raises stress instead of lowering it. The truth is, calm presence and timing are often more powerful than answers. Third myth: loss of intimacy means loss of attraction. This is probably the most damaging myth of all. Men often assume less sex equals less desire. In reality, for women, especially as hormones shift, stress, fatigue, and emotional overload are the biggest libido killers. When men internalize this as rejection, they pull back or get defensive, which deepens the cycle. The truth is, attraction usually isn't gone. It's buried under stress. Here's the part nobody tells you. Believing these myths doesn't just hurt your relationship. It increases your cortisol, lowers testosterone, and chips away at your confidence. Understanding the truth helps you respond calmly, stay grounded, and lead more effectively, both in your health and your relationships. First, women experience stress in a much more body-wide way, and as hormones change with age, stress hits harder and lasts longer. Logic alone doesn't calm that system. Second, emotional connection drives physical intimacy far more than most men realize, especially after 40. Desire doesn't disappear, it becomes more sensitive to stress and safety. Third, emotional consistency matters. Small shifts in your presence, tone, or availability are felt quickly, even when you think you're hiding them. Fourth, under stress, women often communicate indirectly, not to manipulate, but because emotional overload reduces clarity. Timing and patience matter more than pushing for answers. Fifth, emotional withdrawal feels like rejection to women, just like lack of intimacy feels like rejection to men. Both sides end up pulling back, unless someone understands what's really happening. And finally, a lot of relationship strain starts in physiology. Sleep, stress, hormones, not in failure or lack of effort. When your body is regulated, everything else gets easier. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This channel is built specifically for men over 40 who want straight answers about hormones, energy, sexual performance, and relationships, without hype, without fluff, and without being talked down to. I also want you to comment below and tell me this. What's the one thing about women or relationships that has confused or frustrated you the most in the last few years? Be honest. I read those comments, and they directly influence what I cover next. And finally, check the description. I've put a free guide down there that walks you through how to support your hormones, lower stress, and get your edge back after 40. If you're serious about feeling better and showing up stronger, grab it. Look, if you're watching this and recognizing yourself in it, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not broken, and you're not failing. A lot of what you've been struggling with was never explained to you in the first place. With the right understanding and the right support, things can improve your health, your confidence, and your relationships. One step at a time, it's all fixable. I'm Dr. Rosalia Viterbo. Stay strong, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.